Uh, Hi, Lenore. This is Леноре Скенази. Is that correct?
It is. It rhymes in English with crazy. Very easy for
Excellent.
people here to
Yeah,
understand.
I bet this was very easy for everyone around you to remember. Welcome. It's really great to see you here. And the reason we're talking today is your book that finally made its way to Bulgaria. When was it first published? Remind me.
First edition was 2010, I think, or 2009 or 2010.
Right, so it took a long time. And by the way, just for anyone who's watching or listening to us, it was a really big ordeal for us to eventually get the rights because something happened on your side. And
Wasn't
I'm,
me.
I know, I and the whole publishing house is very, very thankful for all your support because you did put your back into it and you helped
Oh,
us to
yeah.
get the right.
And one of the reasons was because I had actually been to Bulgaria about 10 years ago for the Bulgarian Happiness Festival. I'm not sure if that keeps going. Have you ever been to the Bulgarian Happiness Festival?
No, I haven't actually, and probably they canceled it once I came back to Bulgaria. I don't know.
It was just a great thing, and I got to speak, and I got to stay at this cool hotel and eat all these yummy salads and smell rose soap, and I had such lovely feelings about Bulgaria. I was like, gosh darn it, I want that book to be over there. So
Well,
very glad.
hint taken, you are invited in principle for now. Soon enough, the offer will be very specific about when you could come and speak to our audiences because recently at a book fair, a very young family came by and they complained to me that they let their 6 or 7 year old son go to a school holiday with his buddies and obviously with the appropriate amount of teachers. And then all of their friends basically massacred them for being so irresponsible. So before we get to that couple and what you've got to say about that, my first and most important question must be, where are your children right now?
Well, if I knew where they were right now, I wouldn't be who I am, right? America's Worst Mom. One is hopefully at his job in Connecticut. They're in their 20s now, and one is hopefully at his job in Manhattan.
All right. So if one of them is in their 20s, do you have any grandchildren yet?
Not that I know of, not that I've been told of. One of them has a serious girlfriend. One does not and is sad about it. And we'll see. We'll see what happens next.
Okay, so I take it that despite your irresponsibility, they have survived and grown into full-fledged adults who now have their own lives.
They have. One of the things that's become so, I'm boiling in my apartment, so common now, and maybe it's been common forever, is the idea that it's all thanks to me. Like anything good would be thanks to the parents, anything bad would be thanks to the parents, their success or their disaster because of your parenting choices. And I think that's one of the reasons that parents are being driven crazy. It's that we don't have that much control. And the idea that we do just adds another burden. Of course, we have the important job of making sure they're loved and fed and, given some values. But anybody who has more than one kid knows that they can be very different. They choose different partners, paths, interests, personalities. And so, yes, I'm thrilled that my kids both have jobs, are full-time employed people. But if they weren't, would it be because of me? And is it thanks to me that they have jobs? Not entirely, and not by a long shot. I feel real empathy for parents whose kids are not on a fantastic path at the moment. And also things are always up and down. You never know where they'll be soon. So that's a long way of saying my kids are fine. I don't think it's all thanks to me.
Right, this is an excellent opening to our conversation. But let us tell our viewers and listeners what your cause is. How did it start? Although in the book it's very well described. But you're not as well known in Bulgaria. You're not as well known in Bulgaria as you are in the US. Oprah doesn't travel to here, even on television. So, what's the entire idea behind Free Range Kids, and how did it come about?
Well, thank you for teeing that up. So when our younger son was 9, and as you heard, they're in their 20s now, a long time ago, he was asking my husband and me if we would take him someplace he'd never been before here in New York City, where I'm talking to you from right now, and let him find his own way home on the subway, which was something that he felt he was ready for. And the subway is something that we're on all the time. That's how we get around. We don't have a car. It's just so normal here in New York City. 6 million people take it every day. So my husband and I discussed this because our older son hadn't asked. My older son, who calls himself the control group. And I don't know if it's a joke in Bulgarian or not. It's very funny here. And so we decided, yes. So one sunny Sunday, I took Izzy, the 9-year-old, to a very fancy store where I don't shop, so he'd never been before, called Bloomingdale's. And I left him there after telling him that was the day, hooray. And sure enough, he went. Bloomingdale's happens to sit on top of its own subway station. So if you go downstairs from there, you can take the subway down to 34th Street, a very bustling shopping street, and then a bus across town, which he did. And he came into our apartment levitating with pride and excitement and feeling this cool grown-up feeling of having done something by himself.
Just to clarify, this was before the mobile phones, right? You didn't give him a mobile phone.
It wasn't before mobile phones, but I didn't give him one. And that was one of the things that people hated me for. After I wrote a column saying, it wasn't an immediate column. I wasn't doing it to write about it, but I needed to write a column like a couple months later. So I wrote why I let my 9-year-old ride the subway alone. And 2 days later, I was on every possible talk show, including ones that are on the real left politically and ones that are on the far right politically, and everyone in between. And, the question was, why had I done it? And I did it because my son felt ready, which made me have to think about, did I feel he was ready? And my husband, who also thought he was ready. And then the question was, why didn't we give him a phone? And the reason was because I was really certain that our son would get home, and I was not sure that our phone would get home. And people, oh, so you like your phone more than your son? I'm like, who does? What are you trying to do? You're trying to create a kind of monster out of a parenting decision that made sense for me, my city, my kid. And so after being sort of raked over the coals by a lot of interviewers, who really thought that I didn't give a damn whether my son lived or died. It's like, yeah, you got me. That's right. I don't care. I got an extra son at home. I don't want to keep feeding him. This is how can I get rid of him? It's Hansel and Gretel all over again. I wrote the book Free Range Kids to explain my side of things, which is that I absolutely love safety. I actually think I'm a nervous mom. I wish I was less nervous. I'm not. I love safety and, helmets and car seats and facing backwards until they're a certain age in the back seat and all of that. But I also believe that kids deserve some trust. And when they're ready to do some things on their own, I don't think it's fair. I don't even think it's wise to say no, because it's not absolutely 100% safe. That's the thing that's been interesting me most. And I'm trying to write a piece about it today. It's like, your mom let you play outside, and she knew that Bulgaria, America, the world is not completely safe. There's no time in the history of the world ever since, Eve had that apple, right? That things have been absolutely perfect. And yet there was an ability a generation or two ago for parents to go, I know there's just not perfect out there. There is some crime. There's always that small chance that something bad can happen, but that's not going to stop me from teaching my kid how to cross the street safely. Don't get into a car with a stranger. Look both ways before you do anything. Don't eat gum off the street. You teach them some basics, and you're with them and you see how they're doing, and then gradually you step back. And that was not considered crazy, even though you knew that they were going out into the world without you, and there was no way of guaranteeing 100% nothing bad would ever happen to them. And now I'm just writing about phones in the schools right now, and parents desperately want their kids to have phones in their schools all day, because here in America, there are sometimes school shootings. There's nothing more upsetting or horrible than one of those. And yet, does it make sense to always be in touch with your child and always insist that they carry something with them as if they could be their last? And is something lost if there's never any chance to show them, look, I believe in you, I believe in your school, I believe you're going to be fine? If you can never say that anymore, I think that's why kids in America, at least, and maybe Bulgaria too, are showing record levels of anxiety and depression, as anyone would be if they were told that every day could be their last. Good luck, goodbye, I love you, please text me when you get there because God knows.
I don't know where you stand on this, but I think there is a more surefire way of stopping school shootings rather than giving children mobile phones. Maybe more gun control would do some good to your country. I don't know about this, but let's not even go there. What I was going to say is, you're saying that children display record levels of anxiety and of other actually disorders, mental, emotional, psychological, whatever you want to call them. But here's another thing. I think your book is actually coming out here at it's a very good time, because there is a lag of about 20 years in the development of our society as compared to, say, America. So all of these things, all of the overprotective parenting is actually just setting in now. I am in my just past my late 20s, let's say, but I was brought up in the way that you advocate for. I played in the woods all day. I grew up in a smaller town in rural Bulgaria. Played in the woods all day. I would not be accounted for long periods. Until my grandmother would come out on the top step of our house and shout my name at the top of her lungs. At that point, wherever I was in the town, I knew to come back home. And even if I didn't hear her voice, I knew that as soon as dusk set in, it was time for me to come home. And that was just what people did. And it wasn't even really to do so much with safety, so much as it was with regularity, having dinner together as a family, having all sorts of different activities. So it's a good time for this book to come out here. And maybe you can now share some wise advice for all of those young parents who are getting swept up in all of these safety features that are all around us, and they're not just implements like helmets and wristwatches and GPSs and whatever, but it's also to do with this woke culture now, with being entirely protected from another person's opinion, and all of this is kind of finding itself into our community, society.
That's amazing. That's so interesting. So do you think it's coming from copying America, or why do you think it's happening now in Bulgaria? Was there a crime wave? Was there a
I don't think that. No, I honestly don't think we're copying anyone. I think it's just the global society, specifically in developed countries, and Bulgaria is definitely a developed country, regardless of what the myths are. Communication is much more stable, much quicker, and people get exposed to the same fears and to the same media coverage, let's say.
Yeah. Do you have, forgive me for asking this, I know so little. What really changed in America and really changed American childhood were a couple of developments in the 1980s. And what happened here, because I grew up in the 60s and 70s, what happened in the 80s was there was a story or two, actually 2 stories of missing children that went completely viral and did a couple things. One is brought even the phrase, stranger danger, which rhymes in English, into common parlance. And also they started putting pictures of missing children on our milk cartons. So I don't know if you had anything like that.
Oh, we never have had any kind of scare about missing children, really. There haven't been many abductions, I don't think, at least not on the scale that you picture. But we do know about all those disappearances. We know about Madeline, what was her name?
McCann, yeah.
Madeleine McCann. Well, we know about all of those events. We know about the school shootings. So probably a lag is a misnomer. We're just catching up now after having been kind of under a roof, let's say, or under a rock for a given period of time. So it is important to kind of set those young parents on the right foot now.
Right. So first of all, it sounds like you're in a kind of great country for children. If you're not worrying so much about abductions like we do here, and I'm sure you don't have the number of guns that we have here, you're already ahead of the game. There's no reason to emulate us, where we're driving our kids crazy with anxiety and depression, if you don't have the root causes that we're talking about. There was something else. I also don't know. You have to tell me about your higher education world. If you go to high school, does everyone go off to college? Does everyone who wants to go to college get into college, which you probably call university? Because here there's a big obsession with the idea that somehow everybody has to go to college, which I don't think is true. And that if you go to, an A+ college instead of just an A college, then your life is going to be terrific. But if you go to a B college, or God forbid, a C college, you might as well just jump off the roof. So I don't know what the education world is like there.
I assume you're kind of alluding to the pressure that children experience at school. Most students are expected to go to university, and most students do. This is probably a positive thing that we carry on still from communism, when education was pretty much universal. And now it's very, very cheap. So it has nothing to do with America, and that's pretty much the case across Europe, by the way. But here, if you go to like the best university in the country, you would pay something around the region of, I don't know, and I'm probably even exaggerating.
What is it?
$500 a year, maybe. And I think this is an exaggeration.
Gotta move. I gotta go. Excuse me. I gotta go call my travel agent. Goodbye. Wow. So I just want to say that one of the reasons that America is so obsessed with being with our children every single second of the day, part of it is the fear that they will be harmed by a stranger. And part of it is that if they're just playing, or just, poking the ground with a stick, or reading a comic book just for fun, that's wasted time, when we could be filling them up with activities and prizes and talents that would get them hopefully a scholarship to our very, very, very expensive schools. So part of the reason is worrying that children will be hurt, and part of the reason is worrying that the children will fall behind, and those become like the double helix of why we're with our kids all the time. Sounds like you don't have to worry about either of those very much there. So just, press pause, look at America, go, and, give kids a sort of 1980s childhood.
Yeah, we don't really have to worry about affordability. So affordability is not really a concern, because any student with a day job or even a part-time job would be able to cover their own expenses easy. Okay, so but here we're talking about students, but people start tending to their children in this way from a very, very early age, and you talk about this a lot.
Mm-hmm. Well, so yeah, I mean, why I was talking about college and talking about children is because, believe it or not, there are parents who are worried, like, my kid got into a bad kindergarten. They didn't go to the fanciest kindergarten. They went to the third fanciest kindergarten. Now they won't get into a really great first grade, and then they won't get into a great sixth grade. They won't get into a great high school, and they'll never get to a great college. People are actually thinking like that. And students, not the entire swath of America, but there's a big enough chunk of kids who, even in middle school, are thinking like, well, I don't really like fencing, but I hear that fencing, is something that college is like, so I guess I'll keep fencing. So the worry about college and sort of preparing your resume and preparing your child for college actually starts when they're really young. My favorite story in New York was, there was a mom whose kid was 4, and she was going to a very fancy preschool, and you could pay thousands of dollars a year for your 2, 3, or 4-year-old to be going to a preschool. And she was upset because the demographics were such that her kid was like the only 4-year-old, and there were a bunch of 2-year-olds. And it's like, I don't want my kid going there, because how is she going to get into Harvard if she's being held back by these 2-year-olds? And she actually sued the school because they had too many 2-year-olds and too few, I guess, too small a 4-year-old cohort. But what I thought was best about her story and the craziness is that actually a 4-year-old surrounded by 2-year-olds is developing leadership, bossiness, creativity. You have this whole, like, all these minions, right? That you can, push around and make like do your will because you're twice their age, right? You're the queen. So actually she missed an opportunity by pulling her kid out and also making the entire family the laughing stock of New York. But in terms of parents today with their kids, I'd say a couple of things. One is, think back on your own childhood and what you loved, because that is a way to slightly recalculate, like, what am I doing? Often I give a lot of talks. Like I said, I spoke in Bulgaria, and I ask people, what did you love doing as a child that you don't let your own child do? And I love first of all, I love the conversations. I mean, I really feel it. Everyone thinks it's a great talk. And I'm like, I didn't do any talking. I asked you this question. I walked to the side of the stage. I drank a beer. I came back. You're still talking. But it's only that way that you start to calculate the distance between what I loved. And of course, I want the best for my kid. This is what I loved: playing in the woods, making the fort, playing with Barbies, staying out till the street lights came on, organizing a game of Foursquare, jump rope, whatever it was. And I'm always driving my kid to soccer. I'm driving my kid from soccer to homework help. And from homework help, I'm driving my kid. I don't know if it's like that there, but people appreciated their free range childhood, and yet they're trying to give their kids a cultivated childhood, hoping that that's better for them. But better how? I mean, better psychologically? I don't think so. Better physically? I don't think so. In fact, there's studies done that show the kids actually run around more when they're just playing on their own than when they're in an organized sport. And if you're not worrying about the scholarships and you're not worrying about the creepy guy in the white van, which everybody here is worried about is going to take their kid, then there's no reason not to give your kids the best of what your childhood was, which is some trust and some freedom, some free time, some fresh air. And the trust thing is big. Trusting that your kids, even if it looks to me like, why are you wasting? I spent a lot of time making stuff that made no sense. I spent a lot of time looking for 4-leaf clovers. I am not a professional 4-leaf clover finder, even to this day, despite my amazing skill. And I spent time making sculptures out of like toilet paper and crepe paper and squishing them and making things out of glue. I mean, you probably would have thought like, loser, but my parents trusted that I was just being creative and being me. And I appreciate that trust. And they didn't think that it was their job to take every moment and say, well, Lenore, I see you're interested in toilet paper. Let's look at the different absorbencies and what is it that makes something absorbent and where did paper come from? They really, oh, here's my phone making noise again. Sorry. I will put it on airplane mode. There you go. Oh, I can't. There you go. Airplane mode now. Fine. The point is that they didn't think I was so needy that if I didn't have every moment perfected by them, optimized in an adult way, I was still going to be good enough, okay, and happy. And there is this idea that we can optimize childhood, and I'd like to reverse engineer that for a second, if I can. Like the idea that we could make childhood like, your kid is playing with something, your kid is drawing. Let's make sure she gets art lessons. Let's make sure we take her and get the best supplies for her. Or the kid likes kicking around a ball. Let's put him in soccer and get him there, 3 times a week and games every Saturday and Sunday. That looks like you've taken the raw materials and you've enriched them like uranium. But really what you've done is taken the intrinsic interest in these things and figuring out, like I like to kick the ball this way, or I love drawing with charcoal, and you've turned it into something that's a lesson. And I'm pro school, but there's a lot that gets taken out when somebody else is telling you, now we're going to do this, and it goes from being your sort of self-driven, self-directed interest to somebody else's project, and often for a grade or a gold star or a trophy or a scholarship. And my colleague, Peter Gray, who I quote in my book and who I work with these days, talks about something called the internal locus of control. That's when you feel like you're in charge of your life. Something bad happens, you can figure out how to get around it. You can rebound from it. You know, you can make things happen, right? You don't have complete control. You're not God. You're not the Pharaoh, but you're okay. And then there's an external locus of control, which we all know if you've ever had a bad job with a terrible boss who keeps telling you, right, did you do it this way? And keeps checking on you. Is that report done? You know, how you doing? And let's go over it. And you're micromanaged and you feel defeated, distrusted, you know, not respected for who you are, and also not allowed to even flourish because somebody is telling you in a niggling way exactly what to do every single second. That's an external locus of control. And when we take children's interests and we say, okay, instead of just playing at the park, I'm going to take you to gymnastics, and then we're going to go swimming, and then we're going to have your physical fitness guy here. You've taken the internal locus of control, and now you're in control. So the child has this external locus of control. And you were speaking
for the sake of the parents, right?
It's not for the sake of the parents. The parents think that they're doing it for the kid. That's why I want to reverse engineer it. It's like, if you want to do what's best for your kid, not that I know your kid or you, there's always a million different ways, and you don't have to listen to me. But the lie that our culture tells us, in part because it's trying to sell us dance lessons and soccer outfits and the special everything, special classes, special equipment, special trips, everything is, we're told that we can make our children's lives richer and better the more we spend on them in terms of time and money. And as you were talking about at the beginning, a lot of the richness of childhood is when you were in the woods with your friends, not a dime being spent, not a lesson being taught, and yet so much being absorbed, from the independence to the curiosity to the digging, sometimes literally just to find out more. And you can sort of quash those by turning them into adult run activities.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just had a thought which disappeared, so we're going to edit this out,
it's not
probably.
just me. Yay.
No.
That's like my life. That should be on a t-shirt. I just had a thought and I can't remember it now.
Yeah, no, and it was a really good thought as well.
The best. Parents, reverse engineering, external, internal,
free range
optimizing.
kids.
Wait, no, I was going to say one other thing about optimizing.
Go.
This one is really sort of easy to understand. When you're around your kid or a bunch of kids, because you're an adult and you're smart and you've lived on this earth for 20, 30, 40 years, and you see the kids and they're trying to organize a game and they're all bickering, and it's like, you went first last time, I'm not going to do it, we don't have a ball, what are we going to do? You always want to play soccer, whatever it is, they're arguing. As an adult, you think like, well, this is a waste of their time. They want to play. Let me go in. I'm going to organize it. Okay, it's going to be soccer for this half hour, and you can count off by twos, and you're going to be on team A and you're going to be on team B, and these are the goalposts, and I'm going to blow the whistle, and we'll start, because you think that they're wasting their time, right?
But the journey is more important, isn't it? The organization itself should give them some value.
It gives them almost every value. And the theory is that Mother Nature or Darwin or, evolution, somebody, God, I don't know, somehow
Bobo.
Yeah, right, Bobo, right. Read that book. Something put the drive for play into kids. And the theory is that because fun is something that kids so desperately want to have, they will do anything to get there, including saying, okay, you go first. Or why don't we do it this way? We do your game and then we do my game. Or why don't we merge games together? We're going to play soccer with Barbie, So in coming up with compromises and creating new ideas and tolerating your frustration because you just want it to be your turn already, but nobody will play with you unless you wait your turn. All these difficult social, emotional skills are being built before the fun begins. And so if we as adults go optimize, let's get straight to the fun, you guys are wasting time, we don't see that that's not the wasted time. That's the enriched time. And then the reward is the fun. And then the fun is going to fall apart in 2 minutes anyway, because the ball was out. No, it wasn't. At which point the enrichment begins again. So when we're always with our kids, we as adults sort of ruin some of their chances to learn these skills. So that's why the big premise of free range kids is that we can't always be with them. We can't always be with them physically or, on the phone, because they need the opportunity, the gift of being trusted to solve some of their things by themselves, organize some of their fun, figure out some of their problems.
Well, as a teacher, I can tell you that this also creates a very unhealthy dependence on authority. Now, here's a quick story, which I think it might sound a little bit mundane, but I think it's a direct result of exactly what you're talking about now. As a teacher, I remember, and it wasn't just the one child, it was a mass phenomenon. They have a pen, they write something down, and then the pen runs out. As they do, the ink runs out, and they don't even consider the possibility of asking their friend or someone to lend them one, or to get up and come to my desk and pick one up because I have a huge ball of them. They just sit back, cross their arms, in the expectation that the authority, in the face of me, will come and sort the problem out for them. And this is a very strange example, I guess. But I remember that it really struck me that this happens time and again in every one of my classes.
And was that in England?
It was in England, yes.
Yeah, I think England is really like America. So I remember hearing something like this once, and it was a kid in my class drops a pencil and they stare at it as if they're waiting for it to jump back up. Right?
Yeah.
Like, what should I, a pencil on the floor. How would I solve that? And I thought that was a teacher exaggerating. And then I heard it from another teacher 5 states away. And now I'm hearing it from you. And let me just say something similar. Similarly, I heard a story once from a mom who said that her son was afraid in his house to go upstairs or downstairs without a parent. I thought, okay, who's 9 or 10 years old? That's weird. And then I heard it again, and then I heard it again, and then I saw it in some psychological literature, like, for instance, when children are afraid to go upstairs or downstairs in their own home. I'm like, it's so common now that it's just like a throwaway line. And similarly, this idea of being completely stymied and passive in the face of something so simple to solve. It's not like you had to go and create a pen, you didn't have to go mine for ink or whatever you do. I have no idea where ink comes from. There's a certain miasma of, good luck translating that, of passivity that seems to be spreading around the world. That's really disturbing. It's sort of like if we all were breathing in sleeping gas, it's like our ether. Kids feel like it feels like there's a lot less gumption or spirit. And I try to say that not like an old person, I had gumption when I was a kid, but it doesn't take a lot of gumption to go, oh my God, I need another pen. Or, I better pick up my pencil.
One of my favorite words is gumption. It's right in the heart of Zen and the art of maintaining a motorcycle or motorcycle maintenance, whatever it's called in English.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the central idea of the book, and hence the reason why it's one of my favorite ones. Now, I think though that this is not just a taught behavior. I think it could also be some kind of a defense mechanism. Why am I saying this? We were talking about all those parents who pressure their children to perform and to succeed. And to an extent, it's, especially in countries such as the US, it's kind of mandated by the system, because you have to get into a kindergarten, you have to have exams to get in there. It's insane. Now, excuse me. One thing that really resonated with me, and here is where I open up and make this conversation about myself and almost like a therapy session. You're talking about it being okay to be average. Now, I was somewhat pushed as a child to perform well, but I kind of did have some talents, so they were encouraged. Let's put it this way. They were encouraged. I was never pressured. But I myself have never found it okay to be average at anything. And I fear that I may inadvertently or even purposely drill this into the head of my children one day when I have them. So I would like to hear your thoughts on mediocrity, on being average.
Well, here's the deal. I have a feeling that you were really good at some things. You weren't really good at everything. I mean, like, I'm excellent at baking brownies. What can I say? I pride myself.
I'll hold you to this.
Yes, well, when you come visit. I was excellent at jump roping back in the day, and I'd say writing. But, terrible at running and bad at math. You can find your interests, and there's no reason to not encourage them. But once again, it's back to that idea of external, internal. If you were, whatever you're interested in is usually something that is, obviously it's grasping you, and it must not be that easy or it would be boring. And so that's it. Don't make it so easy that I'll do this for you. And then don't make it so hard that it's, that it's only you can make it happen. I'm not worried about you. I'm babbling because you're worried about something that I'm not worried about for you. Inevitably, you're going to do some stupid things with your kids that drive them crazy. And you're going to provide them with a lot of love and enough food and those delicious Bulgarian salads. And they're going to be as fine as they can be. And they're going to be different from each other because they're different from each other. And you and your future partner will raise them a little differently depending on who they are. And Peter Gray, again, my saint whose book you should translate next, Free to Learn, said that there's so many parenting books because they're written by parents, right? But there's siblings, there's teachers, there's best friends, there's rotten uncles, there's delightful coaches, there's a movie, there's a book that they see that turns them on. And to worry that just us are creating or ruining the kid is hubris and dumb. So, I'd say my book exists to hopefully give people a little bit of grace and leeway, as opposed to telling them, do this and your kid will be fine. Don't, if you don't read to the very end, including the index, your kids are going to suck because you didn't do everything I said. That's just not the case. Right?
No, I do think that your book has this kind of internal grace, elegance,
jokes, a lot of jokes. There's a lot of jokes in the book.
Yeah, there is a lot
laughing.
of jokes, by the way.
Right.
We can't tell at the moment because you're not being very funny right now.
No,
so
I know. I think I lost it. I wrote that
more.
book in 2009. Now I've become a ponderous old person. What happened?
No, I wouldn't say that, but you don't really impose your opinion on people, and it is important for people to kind of you basically hand back authority to the parent themselves. So the parent doesn't have to rely on 1,000 different parenting books, which must be exhausting to read. I've never read one, and I never planned on reading one. But then I came across yours, and now you've changed my mind, so I might read some more.
You don't have to read anymore.
But
right, you read only one parenting book.
The essence of your book is basically, if I can paraphrase it, paraphrase what you've just said and synthesize the book, is basically leave that intrinsic internal locus of control.
Right.
Yeah, the internal locus of control guide the child, and you just serve as a crutch along the way.
Yeah, although you're also allowed to impose all sorts of things. You can make them go to church. You can make them visit grandma. I mean, you're not just lying in the next room saying, "What are you doing, hon? Fine, goodbye." I mean, when we're talking about the internal locus of control, I'd say that's more for interests that the kids have, but you are the authority. You could say, no, you don't get a phone. Tough. I don't care how much.
Exactly, but you are the authority and not the person who wrote that book, who just proclaimed themselves to be the expert. I hate the word expert, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
I do have a chapter against experts. Yeah. So you're the authority. And also, why do people read parenting books? Because they don't feel like an authority. They feel like, what do I know? Maybe I should be enrolling him this, or reading to him every night, or not reading to him every night. You can ask other people, you can ask your grandparents, and you can get it wrong and you can change it.
But humanity has survived over hundreds of thousands of years without the printing press. Without the printing press, never mind books.
Right. Not even blogs.
Yeah, and as you rightly say, most of those parents throughout history were teenagers, right?
Yeah.
So teenagers should be capable of looking after themselves at least.
Or not, if they're all having their children. The point being that somehow they kept the species alive. And it just, the thing that does drive me crazy about our culture, and that I worry is infecting the rest of the world, is that there is a recipe. It's a secret recipe, but if you get it absolutely right, you'll have a stellar kid who will make you proud and probably be an eye surgeon. And if you, feed them the wrong food one day, or you forget to read to them for a week, all bets are off, and they're going to be, a slug in your basement. And like I said at the top, the fact that my kids are working, it makes me so grateful and glad. And I don't think it was all me. It's not.
Well, I have to ask you this, because obviously your decision to let Easy go on the subway changed your life.
I'll say. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yes. So interesting. Yeah, it's been a fun ride.
I bet you didn't expect that when you went to Bloomingdale's or whatever.
I didn't expect that. We went to McDonald's first, and then we were at the perfume counter getting spritzed and talking to all the people. And I was always a reporter. And so I always expected a life of talking to a lot of people and finding out new things. But my friend told me when my book came out, he said, now people are going to interview you the way you've interviewed people all your life. I'm like, why? It's like,
yeah, just so our viewers and listeners know, before we started, we had a kind of a pre-conversation in which Lenore absolutely bombarded me with questions.
That's true, right?
Which was fun, because I'm usually on this side, so I like being on the other side as well. But how has your movement developed? The free range movement.
Thank you for asking, because I forgot to put in a big plug. So for 10 years, it was me going around free range kids, giving my lectures, and that was fun. And I was freelance writing on the side. That's what I would be doing now. If I didn't have this other gig, I'd just be a regular freelance writer, I'm assuming, or living in a ditch somewhere, because there's no more freelance writing to be had. But about 5 years ago, a guy whose book you should also translate, Jonathan Haidt, came to me and said,
absolutely love Jonathan Haidt.
Yes, everybody does. Let's start a nonprofit
Give him my best.
together. I will. Yeah, he's about to be a big birthday for him. Anyways, so he said, let's start a nonprofit together. And he was working with a man named Dan Schuckman, who was fighting for free speech on campus. And I said, okay, but we'll have to bring in Peter Gray too, because he understands the importance of play. So the four of us started Let Grow. And the whole goal of Let Grow was to change behavior, because I'd been around the world changing people's minds and having them think, oh yeah, I did love my childhood. Oh, I really should let my kid do that. And then nothing would actually change in real life. And so I said, if we're gonna, spend a lot of time and money together, trying to really change the course of this culture that keeps constricting children's lives, we have to give people the experience of letting go, or they will never be able to do it. We can't just keep talking about it. This is a good idea. You should try it. Here's a blog. Here's a podcast. They need to somehow be gently pushed into actually letting go, so that they have the experience of seeing their kid do something on their own and come back. And it was really exciting, and they had a great time, and they made a fort, or they met a squirrel or whatever, or it was awful and they fell off their bike and they twisted their ankle and they limped home, but they made it, right? So anytime a parent can see their kid doing something new, a new stage on their own, it changes the parent. And then that allows the child to change more. And the obvious example is when a kid starts walking instead of crawling, parents don't go, oh, that was great, now go back to crawling. Four arms, 4 limbs on the ground, that's going to be safer. You don't want to toddle around like that. So Let Grow has been working on like, well, how can we give this experience to parents who are so afraid now to let their kids do anything on their own? And what we've come up with is 2 programs. They're free. You can download them. You can translate them into Bulgarian. One is to have schools do the Let Grow experience, where teachers give kids the homework assignment that says, go home and do something new on your own with your parents' permission, but without your parents. And because all the kids are getting this assignment and all the parents have to do it, the parents feel like, I guess so, it's homework. And it's not me deciding it, it's the school telling me, but they still get to decide with their kid. No, I don't want you crossing, Devon, that's a dangerous street. So they come up with something and they do it. And we were just at a school, I wish I could show you the picture, where the kids from kindergarten to 5th grade, although not the first graders, I don't know why not, but kindergarten, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, were all doing the Let Grow project, and they all had to write what they'd done on a leaf. And one kid went to the store and bought food and, had to buy the right food. And she was so proud and she loved her project. And that was a 5th grader. And she'd written this little essay about it. And that was a special needs kid. That was a kid with learning disabilities. And one kid showed, stood up in front of class and described how he cooked dinner for his dog. Okay. And, he actually cooked meat. I would have eaten that. And the teacher said when he got up in front of his class, she was shocked because he's on the autism spectrum. And normally he doesn't participate in class at all. And so that was a breakthrough. And then there were just the regular kids. I made rice with my grandma, and I went outside and took a bike ride. When one little kindergartner drew a picture, a really terrible picture because a kindergartner, of a bike and wrote bike underneath it, right? But the parents also were writing little essays and notes to the teachers. I had no idea she could do this already. I hadn't realized I was holding her back. I'm so proud. He's doing this. This was a real breakthrough for him. So it's a breakthrough for the kid. It's a breakthrough for the parent. And also the teacher gets to see the slow kid. There was a kid in foster care who made macaroni and cheese, the kid in very terrible circumstances or sad circumstances or, some diagnosis. And all of them were able to do something beyond what they had been able to do before. And they could show it to their friends, to their teachers, to their parents. And it's such a simple, free breakthrough that's our main push. And then we also want schools to stay open for free play after school, where all the kids mingle together. They're not on their phones and they're making up games.
This is a lovely mission to have. And while I was listening to you, I was just thinking, thank God we don't have to have this here, because here you can very easily send your 8-year-old to the corner shop to buy you cigarettes and alcohol, and they'll come back bringing them exactly what you sent them for. And there's no problem with this. Our public transport is full of children aged 7 and up going to school and back. Never mind, the high school children, once they're 12, they're free range forever. So we don't really have this kind of problem. We do have the problem with the pressure at times and with the overprotection in other ways. But you said that you collected some good practices by traveling around the world, and you are trying to implement what you've learned, whether through remembering your childhood or bringing it from somewhere else. So I can't skip asking, where did you approve of the childhood most, where you've been and you liked seeing the children? Or the way they...
I didn't, have I seen a lot of places? I mean, I've spoken, you're talking about other countries. I haven't spoken in that many countries. I've spoken in Bulgaria, Australia, England.
Yeah, all the important ones.
Canada.
Yeah.
I haven't been, I have a feeling in South America I would approve, but I haven't really been there, or Latin America. The closest I come is watching that show called, in English, it's called Old Enough. It's in Japanese, it's called My First Errand. And maybe you've seen it. It's kids who are 3, 4, 5, taking their little basket, and their parents have sent them to the fish market, or you have to go get some fish for dinner, or you have to get the rice for the sushi, or dad forgot his apron, can you bring it to him? And it's mined for laughs and for heartstrings, because you see the kids. One kid was told, she must have been 3 or 4 years old, go get a cabbage from the Cabbage Patch to bring home for dinner. And they had cut a cabbage, and it was like sitting there in the shed next to the cabbage field, but she didn't see the cabbage. And she spent hours, like, cabbages are really thick and heavy and big on their roots, their stalk. And she spent the whole time like going like this with the cabbage, like it was a bus wheel, desperate to get it off and bring it home to her parents. And you see the sun going down, and I'm sure the camera crew finally came in with a machete and it's like, look over there, and she brought it home. But it was so poignant, because kids are so thrilled to be trusted, depended on, needed, competent. And sometimes, like in the show, you see there's one episode where it's a little girl and an older boy. Like the boy's like, I don't know, 5, and the girl's like 3 or 4. And the boy is crying, and the girl is like tugging him along. And if this was American television or American life, they would like, cut, we can't do this. This kid is sad. You can't have a kid crying. But what you saw as a viewer is the tears, despite the tears, despite the fears, the kid going and running that errand, and then getting kind of interested and looking at the tchotchkes, and finally, coming home with the fish and the rice and the noodles. And that is a hero's journey. And so I love seeing that. It's hard for me to see this going on in a country when I land there, because I don't know how old the kids are, or who they're doing, or what they're doing. But that television show is the key. I have a feeling I would really be blown away by Japan.
Okay, I've never been, so I can't comment. But I've seen another show which is British, and if you haven't seen it, I recommend you do it tonight.
Okay,
It's called The Secret Life of 4-Year-Olds.
Oh my God, I haven't even heard of it.
Imagine Big Brother for 4-year-olds. They just release them in a setting which is usually a kindergarten, with a nice outdoor area, a nice indoor area, and they just let them figure it out. Wow. And it is the funniest, the most endearing thing you will see, and it plays by all of your rules. So yeah, just and I recommend this to anyone who's watching or listening to us. The Secret Life of 4-year-olds. I think you can find it online. Yeah. What was I going to say about all those children with their errands? Well, don't remember. I was going to say something, or to ask something rather, but there we go.
Well, you'll just have to call me another time. You have to come to New York. Not everybody who's listening, but some of you. If you do come to New York, you got a delegation of Bulgarians who want to see my cool neighborhood. I actually am very, very proud of my neighborhood. I'll bring you over.
Thank you for mentioning Bulgaria. This is exactly what I was going to say. It's more a comment than a question. But I think this conversation has now helped me formulate the reason why there's not very many, but surely many enough Americans in Bulgaria, because as you all know, there's a lot of Bulgarians in America, and that's understandable. People travel there for financial freedom, financial stability,
opportunity, right?
Yeah, the American dream. And I can't tell you how many people have come back disappointed, but that's a different story. But we do have, like, the person who does my tattoos, Ricky. He's American. He lives in Bulgaria. There's many more, and they are not they're not even thinking about going back there to settle. They go back to see family, obviously, but they do enjoy the freedom that we have here. And it saddens me to see that it is getting threatened by the new age parents.
Saddens me too. You gotta put up a dam. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, you were talking about the fish market. What did the fish say when it hit the wall?
Damn.
There you go. Good luck translating
that's it. Oh my God, that's great. I'm not the translator. You are. All right. As you can tell, I have to go get my hair cut. Ugh. So I got to run.
Well, me too. Thank you very much, Lenore, for agreeing to speak to me. And I really do hope that you're going to make it back over to Bulgaria, because I think that there will be a lot of parents who would be ecstatic to speak to you. You'll be happy to know that most of parents my age and younger speak English, so you'll be fine with that.
Oh, wow. That's impressive.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't even know why I need to bother translating this, but I will anyway. Thank you very much again. And is there anything you wanted to say that I didn't let you?
Just that it sounds like you are still a sanctuary for the kind of childhood that I remember and that you remember. And sanctuaries are precious.
Thank you very much, Lenore. Your book is coming out very soon. Probably will be on the market by the time we publish this conversation as well. It's called Free Range Kids. The link is in the description below, of course. Don't forget to like and subscribe, whatever people say on these things. And yeah, until we meet again in person in Bulgaria, Lenore.
Right. Or Queens.
Or Queens.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Abo.
Thank you.